Tamie was born on the island of Kauai in Hawaii in 1915. Tamie is a Nisei, which means she is a second-generation immigrant from Japan. When Tamie was a child, she was very sickly, but this made her very focused on her studies. Tamie did her undergraduate studies at the University of Hawaii and began studying anthropology. Right before World War II broke out, Tamie was about to become a PhD-level anthropologist at the University of California. Tamie decided not to return to Hawaii since she wanted to help the Japanese Americans who were being incarcerated in internment camps. Tamie was recommended by her mentor and top anthropologist Robert Lowy to be part of a Japanese American evacuation and resettlement study. Shortly after the bombing of Pearl Harbor by Japanese military forces, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, which authorized the mass force removal and incarceration of all Japanese Americans on the West Coast. Military zones were created in California, Washington, and Oregon to relocate Japanese American citizens. Around 117,000 Japanese Americans were forced to leave their homes and forfeit their property to go and live in internment camps. About a third of Hawaii's population is Japanese, and around 1,500 of them were forced to go to camps on the mainland. Japanese Americans were forced to endure internment from the years 1942 to 1945. The Japanese American Evacuation and Resettlement Study, otherwise known as JERS, was a study of the migration, confinement, and resettlement of Japanese Americans during World War II. The project was funded by the University of Berkeley in California by a sociologist named Dorothy Thomas. The project published 3 books on their findings and created a huge amount of data that has been used in other studies. While the study produced a lot of data, much of it was not reviewed until much later. Today, the collection method of this data has been called into question for the amount of stress and danger the collectors were put into. Tamie was the only Japanese American woman to participate in the Japanese American Evacuation and Resettlement Study. To collect data, Tamie let herself be incarcerated on purpose to gather data for the study. Tamie was sent to the Poston War Relocation Center in Arizona. She kept a detailed journal of her time in the camp and created an ethnographic report on it. Tamie was able to provide the survey with information for 2 years before the stress of being a secret informant became too much. She joined the Women's Auxiliary Corps and did translations for the U.S. Army to be able to be removed from internment. After the war ended, Tamie returned to UC Berkeley and became the first Japanese American woman to receive a doctorate in anthropology at that college. Tamie once again returned to UC Berkeley and received a degree in library sciences, and ended up overseeing the Asian language collection of the University of Texas's library. Since Tamie did not publish the findings of her time in the Japanese evacuation and resettlement study herself, her reports were long forgotten until the 1980s when the work of the survey was re-examined. A short biography on Tamie called The Politics of Fieldwork highlighted how race, class, and gender affected human-focused data collection. The lengths that Tamie went to collect data have given researchers a lot of insight into the moral ethics that go into data collection in wartime and the importance of data collected in such a first-hand way.